Hello, this is Kitsune Zeta, and I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate what I've been working on pretty much for the last month. You'll notice this is Fantasy Grounds. Smartworks' virtual tabletop you can get on Steam. And I've been working on a Ruleset that implements a rules-light RPG by the name of OVA, the anime RPG. Now, it's not feature complete. If you're expecting it to be on the level of some of the other rule sets, such as Savage Worlds or Pathfinders, or especially Dungeons and Dragons 5th Edition, you're not gonna have that level of implementation in the rule set as it is, but it is usable. There's also a couple placeholders where I've gotten started on tinkering with other possible systems like Golden Sky Stories, but the current release of it, which is not the initial release, so I've already had to make a hotfix due to Core RPG 3.2. The current release of it is usable. I really should figure out how to work the release number, but so this demonstration assumes knowledge of Fantasy Grounds 2, or at the very least some knowledge of Core RPG. When you're creating a campaign for this as the host or game master, the only thing you need to do is make sure you actually select the rule set. Beyond that, give it whatever appropriate name you want. Let's go with OVA demo. Set the username and the password fields as you need them to. And if you need it, you can get your IP address information from here. But we're not gonna worry about networking. And besides, if I needed to test multiplayer, I'd probably just run a second instance of Fantasy Grounds. But after that, hit start, and it'll go ahead, create a campaign, and open it up. Assuming it's loaded correctly, you should see first off the OVA as the desktop decal. You can actually go up to options here. Scroll over here to desktop decal image. If you really want the old Smartworks logo back, you can switch it back to there. But we'll keep it on OVA for convenience. Speaking of options, before I get too far into this, there is one new feature that was added in Core RPG 3.2, manual dice entry. I'll explain why later. Leave it off. Leave the manual dice entry off. It has caused issues, and it is the sole reason in that and I even put out a hotfix, because as it causes issues. Now, if you've used Core RPG before, one of the first things you'll notice is I've only included the D6s. And it's mostly intentional because OVA only uses 6-sided dice. So I may eventually tweak it to where you can use other dice like D8s, D10s, D12s, D20s. But for now, I'm sticking with D6s because all of the official content And most of the fan produced content uses the same dice. Let me yeah. As far as what's implemented, you might notice there's a bunch of buttons over here. The sidebar itself is as it is in Core RPG. And we can go down to the library and I can pretty much turn off all the things we don't need, which conveniently this button does. The only thing I've implemented the only thing this rule set implements are OVA style skill checks and the player character sheets. And technically heroic NPC in character sheets as well. Although that's not exactly due to my fault, due to my work. So so you click the characters button over here, and it'll bring up the character selection screen, which I believe you'll get automatically if you join a session as a client, as just a player. From there, just like in Core RPG, you can either click this button down here or hit the add item, or you can just right click create item. Now, for our demonstration, I'm going to use one of the 3 freely available characters, Miho. There were 3 player books that were distributed for free from the official little site for OVA. If you go to wiseturtle.com and then click on products here, you can get the 3 player books mixed from the right here. There's one for Orin, one for Rain, and then one for Miho, which is the character I'll be using for the example. There's also a character sheet in pack and zip file here, and a conversion guide for the original open versatile anime RPG. But those aren't particularly needed for the rule set. Now the player book is fairly light reading. I mean, it's basically 10 pages long. And of that, only this page right here, page 3, is absolutely necessary. So we're gonna work on creating Miho in this rule set. So step 1, enter the name. Now, if I had graphical assets that I could assign, and I put one up for the portrait, but I don't have that, and that's not the one I wanted to hit. Oh, I do have a couple images instead. I did yank out a PDF, but not for the right character. Same goes for the token, although at least in the case of a token, it's possible to just get your generic token packs. There's also this speak as button, but we're not gonna need that. So just to scroll down to the actual character sheet, which is where most of the design decisions for the character sheet as implemented in the rule set come from. There are basically 3 sections. You've got your abilities and weaknesses in this area. Then you have your combat, your attack suite. And then you've got your general notes. Now, beneath the combat stats, you've also got defense, health, endurance, and threat value. if you really want to know how to calculate these for your characters, go get the official rulebook if this interests you. But we're just going to work on entering Miho into the rule set. So first, we're going to start with the abilities. Now, I've patterned this after the abilities tab on the core RPG character sheet, which means you'll have categories. So, base abilities. And in these categories are where you put the abilities and the weaknesses. So, Agile, Shift Tab, +3. If you mouse over any of these, you'll get a tooltip. If you mouse over any of these numeric fields, you'll get a tooltip explain what they are. Here, but they're more or less in the same. From left to right, it should read in the same order as they do on the official character sheets. The only thing different is this icon over here, which brings up a dialog that you can use to enter reference information, and this can be done per ability and unique to each character. This allows for stuff like unique abilities such as Miho's quick calculator to simply be entered as what is it? It is a +1 ability. Quick calculator. It does auto sort based on the name, by the way. So I can go here, unique ability. Let me header that. And I'm just going to be a bit lazy, and which page has it? There it is. So I'm just going to file copy paste this and make sure that alright. And make sure it is. Yeah, there. From the note when you're copy pasting from the PDFs like that is all the line breaks do get copied. It's weird but fixable. But yeah, now we've I'm just shrinking this down to where it's the best fit. Lock the description from being edited, and bam. Now we've implemented a unique ability for Miho without having to use the unique ability prefix. Now, another thing to note is you can stick both abilities and weaknesses in the same group. So, naive. You can just hit the minus button to change the plus and minus. It does default to putting +1, but if you hit backspace, it'll switch to 0. So if you're used to entering in your numbers as -1, and that's an option. And as I said earlier, it sorts purely based on the ability name, not the number of ranks. Now, let's discuss container abilities, or what I refer to as container abilities. Transformation is one such ability, and I'm actually very thankful that one of the 3 characters actually has as transformation or gear. Gear would be the other such ability. The rule set as it is now doesn't have a way to parent abilities to other abilities. Is that +1? That's +1. It is self-defense mode, right? Self-preservation mode. I am a stickler for getting things correct. So, how do we handle contained abilities? We just make a new group. And then we add the appropriate abilities under there. I already know that there's two abilities and a weakness. +2 combat expert. +2 endurance reserve. And then loss of control. That's -3. Now again, loss of control is another one of those unique abilities, so once again we do absolutely need to pop out the reference information with this button here and make sure to enter the relevant information. So again, I'm just being expedient on this one. Oh right, that's right. The abilities and weaknesses under self-preservation mode aren't actually detailed. Right, so this is where I make stuff up. That's good enough. Now, next up, combat tab for the character attacks. This one's a bit more straightforward. There's no categories to worry about. So, mode 1, I believe it's hand to hand, yes. I really should fix the roll field over here to where it starts at 2, because that's the standard value. Mode 1 is roll of 8, damage multiplier of 7, no endurance cost. Affinity martial arts. By the way, one of the things I did have to go fix is tab order, but that was fixed before the initial release. Now the tab order actually makes some semblance of sense. Because before it would be endurance, DX, roll. And just to go ahead and toss the second example in here, mode 2 Gatling gun. is ranged, overwhelming, inaccurate, times 3. Now that is a roll of 5. Damage multiplier of 4, I believe. Yes. Now the endurance value, if there's an actual endurance cost, you can put it in there. Otherwise, just leave it blank. And up here, you can actually put in the defense roll. I did not make that and drag roll. So, like with the abilities, you also have a field for descriptions here. And that behaves just like before. And you can actually just right click to get rid of, to add or remove items as well. This also works on the abilities. And at some point I probably should fix the spacing thing, so that this actually stretches out to the right, but it works for now. Then you have the notes, which basically allows you to cover, let's see, basically this entire block, as well as background information, appearance, personality, other notes. And I'm not going to go ahead and fill out this entire thing. Some of these fields can span multiple lines. Not all of them. Yeah, in character concept, I have limited to 1 line. If that really becomes a problem, and if enough people really complain that that's not enough space for that character concept, I can extend it. I can get that extended, but all the official characters have concepts that will fit on that 1 line. And that's it on character creation. I mean, you can actually adjust the HP and endurance values as appropriate. So, that's the character sheet. But I also mentioned that I got the skill rolls handled. Now, there's 2 ways to perform skill checks. One is done by using character attacks. It rolls the appropriate number of dice, and it also calculates the correct value. This might seem counterintuitive to some people, but if you read the rulebooks, either the actual core rulebook or any of the player rulebooks, starting on page 5. Then it actually does make a bit of sense. What goes on is you roll so many dice, you then group all the dice that turned up the same number with each other. So you're going to create up to 6 groups. In this case, there was 4 groups created. You total each group independently, and then you take the largest total out of there. And that's how it works for positive rolls. So in our case, we had 3 4s. 3 times 4 is 12. And that's larger than 2 5s, which is 10, or 2 3s, which is 6. So our result is 12. Now, by the way, these question marks, solely because I didn't turn off, I did make the game aim force hidden rolls. or force all roles to be shown in public. So with that saying changed, if I do it now, it's now going to be shown in public. And wait, and we have a bunch of doubles, but the only one that really matters is the doubles 5s here, which is a 10. The other way to need to do a roll is with a new slash command, /OVA roll, which it takes a modifier, mandatory, and a description. Now, rolls can be negative, and these rolls are, calculated correctly. In the case of a negative roll, it just takes the lowest die. In this case, there was a 1, so the result is 1. The modifier that is displayed is the actual modifier that was applied to the roll when determining the number of dice. As this is consistent with how the rulebook handles it, with one exception. And this is only a technical exception. Negative rolls are handled as when you have any roll made with a negative modifier, even if it's just -1, is counted by the rule set as a negative roll. Not that that matters, because at -1 you're only rolling 1 die. Now, you might have noticed this modifier widget, which has remained completely unchanged. So you can build a roll. You can build a roll using this modifier tablet, using this modifier widget, and then just go /OVA roll 0. This roll built with modifier widget. And it's also going to output all those modifiers as well. And the final modifier that the roll is under is shown. It also empties modifier widget. This also applies to rolls that you do with the from the roll value here. And if you watch the number of dice, you'll notice that it goes from 8 to 10. Because it's factoring in the +2 from the modifier widget. Now, I mentioned way back earlier that that it's best to keep manual dice entry off. What manual dice entry does is it allows us for people to roll real world dice and then enter the values. There's a slight problem with it. You'll notice that in all of the rolls that we've done so far, except for this one, the dice have been sorted when they were presented. Manual rolls, it seems to have been fixed. Hang on, I'm going to try a reroll. Let's try this. Okay. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay. So I was not aware I fixed that problem. This is why you test. You might have fixed a problem that you were never aware of. But that's not the only problem. Other problem is that broke the script originally. Now, if there's an invalid number, it just flat out doesn't count. But yeah, the original version of the script actually, believe it or not, the original version of the script actually did end up breaking whenever there was a value outside the range of 1 to 6. And that caused a script error. Incidentally, that was because as I made a naive assumption that a 6-sided die, like this die over here, can only ever have a value in the range of 1 to 6. As it turns out, that's not accurate due to manual dice entry. Still, it's a perfectly... So I guess it's actually working better than I initially thought. So, still, I don't exactly recommend it if you're using Fantasy Grounds in the first place. The only time it'd be useful is if you're actually rolling real world dice. I have no idea when I ended up fixing that. I'm actually legitimately confused because I tested this just a couple days ago and it was broken. It was just flat out broken. Is it actually still fixed for that's how I roll? So if I go 6, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 7. Yeah, it's just fixed. I have no idea. They may have actually hotfixed something in Core RPG to address that issue. Or I may be more of a genius than I give myself credit for. So yeah, ignore the manual entry. Anything. You can turn it on if you want. That's basically it for this demonstration. Oh right, what's up? What I plan to do for the next iteration of this rule set? Well, there is a handy little NPCs thing. Presently, this behaves exactly as it is in Core RPG, which isn't the most useful of things for OVA. So, what I'm looking to do is basically allow it to handle both extra type art NPGs, which are basically just a text block, and the other kinds of NPCs, which are basically full-blown player characters but controlled by the GM. I suppose technically you can always handle those by taking ownership of character as the GM, and this was actually added after I released the initial version of this rule set, because that's a Core RPG feature now. But the next thing I'd be looking into doing is getting NPCs working. That's actually it. So, oh yeah, down in the description of this video will be a link to 2 release threads for this. One on the Fantasy Grounds forum and one on the official OVA forums. I'm also going to be including a link to the store page for OVA itself, as well as to both the Steam store page and the actual Smiteworks store page for Fantasy Grounds 2. So with that, see you whenever I actually get around to uploading another video, because dear God, I don't record videos. I don't do that much video work.